Welcome to the hidden heart of the music industry, a place where the glitz and glamour of the world stage are replaced by the raw, vibrating energy of a tiny recording booth. Have you ever wondered what it truly takes to create a masterpiece that moves millions of hearts across every continent? It's not just about the melody or the rhythm, it's about the blood, sweat, and very real tears shed behind the glass. Today, we're taking you on an exclusive journey through the eyes of the man who has seen it all, the legendary producer Pdogg. He has been the silent witness to the evolution of BTS, watching 7 young boys transform into global icons. But more importantly, he has heard the unfiltered emotions that the world only hears in the final mix. In the studio, there are no flashing cameras or screaming fans, only the heavy silence between takes and the intense pressure to deliver perfection. But which member of BTS is the most emotional when the record light glows red? Who is the one whose voice cracks under the weight of a story they are desperate to tell? Who is the member that can turn a simple vocal guide into a moment of pure cinematic heartbreak that leaves the production team in awe? We are about to rank the members from 7 to 1 based on their emotional vulnerability and intensity during those grueling recording hours. Is it the poetic soul of the leader, the soaring height of the main vocalist, or the raw honesty of the rappers? Get ready for a deep dive into the psychic landscape of the world's biggest band. This is more than a list. It's a tribute to the human spirit behind the music. Who will claim the top spot as the most emotional member in the booth? This is the side of BTS you were never meant to see, the moments where the music becomes real life and the life becomes music. Are you ready to discover the truth behind the voices? Let's begin this unforgettable countdown. Number 7. The stoic architect of raw truth, the silent storm. Number 7 brings us to a man who is often described as the backbone of the group's sonic identity, a person whose very presence in the studio commands a certain kind of reverent silence. We're talking about none other than Min Yoongi, the legendary Suga. Now, you might be wondering, why is the man who pens some of the most gut-wrenching, soul-bearing lyrics in the history of modern music sitting at the number 7 spot? According to the veteran producer Pdogg, who has spent thousands of hours locked in the studio with these 7 individuals, Yoongi's emotionality is a unique, controlled phenomenon that differs wildly from the others. When Suga enters the recording booth, he doesn't just walk in to sing or rap, he enters as an architect who has already lived the pain he is about to record. Pdogg has often shared that recording with Yoongi is a masterclass in efficiency, but it's an efficiency born from a deep, internal emotional processing that happens long before the red record light ever flickers to life. You see, while other members might discover the emotion of a song during the session, Suga arrives with his heart already hollowed out, ready to fill the microphone with the echoes of his past struggles, his anxieties, and his triumphs. Pdogg recalls the days back in their cramped, early studios. Space is so small you could feel the humidity of each other's breath, where Yoongi would sit for hours in his own genius lab, obsessively tweaking beats until they mirrored the rhythm of his heartbeat. When he finally brings those tracks to Pdogg, the emotional groundwork is already laid. In the booth, Yoongi is known for his one-take potential. He doesn't need to cry to show he's hurting. You can hear the tears in the way his voice cracks during a whispered verse, or the way he aggressively attacks a consonant when he's venting frustration. Pdogg has noted that Suga's emotionality is dry yet piercing. It's like a cold winter wind that cuts through your coat no matter how thick it is. Think about the recording of First Love. Pdogg stood behind the console, watching through the glass as Yoongi recorded that legendary track. It wasn't a standard rap session, it was an exorcism. The way his voice built from a soft, nostalgic murmur to a desperate, frantic shout as he spoke to a piano that represented his entire childhood that wasn't acting. That was a man reliving the moment he almost gave up on his dreams. Pdogg stayed silent, almost afraid to interrupt the frequency of the room. The emotional weight was so heavy that the production team felt like they were intruding on a private prayer. Suga ranks here because he is the master of his own vulnerability. He knows exactly how much to give and how much to keep for himself. He doesn't let the emotion overwhelm his technique. Instead, he uses his technique to weaponize the emotion. Pdogg admires this professional stoicism because it requires an incredible amount of mental strength to stare your darkest memories in the face and then turn them into a melody that millions will sing along to. There are moments, however, when even the cool-headed Suga finds himself caught in the tide. Pdogg has seen those brief flashes, the way Yoongi will pull his hat lower over his eyes after a particularly intense take, or the way he'll take a long, shaky breath before asking to try it one more time because the previous take was too real. He is the silent storm. You don't always see the lightning, but you can feel the pressure in the air changing when he steps up to the mic. He sets the foundation for the group's emotional honesty, providing a grounded, gritty reality that balances the soaring heights of the vocalists. For Pdogg, Yoongi is the member who proves that you don't have to be loud, and you don't have to break down to be broken. His emotionality is intellectualized, distilled, and then served as a 100-proof shot of pure human experience. It's this terrifyingly beautiful control that makes him the perfect starting point for our ranking. If this is the level of intensity at number 7, a man who can make a producer's hair stand on end with just a whispered Suga, can you even begin to imagine what happens when we move toward the members who wear their hearts completely on their sleeves? The journey into the emotional psyche of BTS is only just beginning, and as we move to number 6, we encounter a member who approaches the recording booth with a completely different kind of emotional intensity, one that involves a deep, philosophical struggle with every single syllable. Are you ready to see who takes the next step in this emotional countdown? The studio walls have seen things we can only dream of, and Pdogg is about to reveal even more. Number 6. The intellectual poet, the weight of a leader's soul. Stepping into the number 6 spot is a man whose mind is as vast as the ocean and whose heart is perpetually tethered to the responsibility of being the voice of a generation, our incredible leader, RM Kim Namjoon. When you think of RM, you think of strength, eloquence, and the calm captain navigating the BTS ship through the wildest of storms. But producer Pdogg sees a completely different side of him behind the soundproof glass of the big hit recording studio. For Pdogg, recording with Namjoon is like watching a philosopher try to capture the essence of the human condition in a single 4-minute track, and that process is deeply, intensely emotional. It's not the kind of emotion that always leads to outward sobbing, but rather a heavy, atmospheric melancholy that fills the room until you can practically taste the salt of his thoughts. Pdogg has often reflected on how Namjoon doesn't just record lyrics, he records his struggles with his own identity, the pressure of his position, and the constant friction between being a global idol and a regular young man named Kim Namjoon. There is a specific kind of weight that Pdogg describes when RM enters the booth, a silence that falls over the mixing console, because everyone knows they are about to witness something profoundly personal. One of the most striking details Pdogg has shared involves the recording of tracks where the group's future felt uncertain. During the most beautiful moment in life era, the stakes were sky high, and Pdogg remembers Namjoon standing in the booth, his tall frame hunched over the lyric sheet, obsessively rewriting lines because the emotional temperature wasn't quite right. He is a perfectionist of the soul. He won't just settle for a good vocal take, he needs the take to feel like the truth. Pdogg recalls sessions where Namjoon would spend 30 minutes just discussing the philosophy behind a single metaphor before even touching the microphone, his eyes burning with a quiet, desperate intensity. When he finally starts to record, his voice carries a unique texture, a mix of gravel and honey that Pdogg says becomes fragile when he's being truly honest. Think back to the recording of Spring Day. While the melody is hauntingly beautiful, the raw emotion comes from the way Namjoon delivers his lines. Pdogg watched him through the glass as he closed his eyes, his hands moving rhythmically as if he were trying to pull the words out of his very chest. There was a moment where the room went completely still, and Pdogg realized that Namjoon wasn't just singing about missing a friend, he was channeling every loss he had ever experienced. It's this intellectualization of emotion that makes him so fascinating to a producer. He doesn't just feel, he analyzes why he feels, and then he translates that analysis into a vocal performance that feels like a heavy blanket on a cold night. Pdogg notes that RM is often the member who stays latest, sitting in the dark studio long after the others have left, listening to his takes over and over again, his face illuminated only by the glow of the monitor, looking for the one syllable that sounds most like his real self. There's a certain loneliness to his emotionality in the booth, a sense that he is carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders, and the only way to lighten the load is to pour it into the microphone. Pdogg has mentioned that sometimes, after a particularly grueling session, Namjoon will just sit in the booth in total silence for 5 minutes, staring at the floor, exhaling a breath he seems to have been holding for hours. It's a reflective, somber energy that commands respect. He isn't afraid to show his confusion, his fear of the future, or his longing for a simpler life. For Pdogg, Namjoon's emotionality is the foundation of BTS's sincerity. Without that heavy, thoughtful grounding, the music wouldn't have the same gravity. He is the one who reminds us that it's okay to be lost, and he does so by getting lost in his own emotions right there in the recording booth, under the watchful, appreciative eye of a producer who has seen him grow from a rebellious underground rapper into a statesman of the heart. Pdogg sees the cracks in the leader's armor, and it's in those cracks that the most beautiful music is found. He is the architect of the group's emotional narrative, but he is also a victim of his own deep thinking, often trapped in a cycle of wanting to be perfect while needing to be real. This constant internal battle is what Pdogg captures on tape, the sound of a man trying to find himself in the middle of a global phenomenon. It's a quiet, dignified sort of emotionality that makes you want to reach through the glass and tell him he's doing enough. But as powerful as Namjoon's intellectual emotion is, there are members who approach the microphone with an even more visceral outward display of feeling. If RM is the deep, still water of a lake, who is the member that hits the studio like a crashing wave of pure, unfiltered sunshine mixed with unexpected tears? We've covered the silent storm and the heavy philosopher, but as we move closer to the top of the list, the emotions become even more unpredictable and raw. Are you prepared to find out which member can go from a bright smile to a soul-shattering vocal performance in the blink of an eye? The atmosphere in the studio is about to get even more intense, and Pdogg has even more secrets to share about the voices that move the world. Number 5. The perfectionist's hidden tears, the duality of sunshine and shadows. When we think of young Hoseok, the world sees a literal sunbeam, a man whose laughter can light up the darkest stadium and whose dance moves defy the very laws of physics. But when the studio door clicks shut and the heavy, soundproof padding of the recording booth surrounds him, producer Pdogg sees a completely different side of the man we call J-Hope. This is the rank where we encounter a professional intensity so sharp it can almost draw blood. Pdogg has often remarked that Hoseok is perhaps the most disciplined member of the group, a man who approaches music with the precision of a surgeon, but beneath that surgical precision lies a well of emotion that is as deep as it is unexpected. For J-Hope, recording isn't just about hitting the right notes or the perfect rhythm. It's about a desperate, almost obsessive need to convey a specific feeling, and when he can't find it immediately, the emotional toll is visible. Pdogg describes the atmosphere in the studio during a J-Hope session as electric and tense. Unlike the members who might lean into a melancholic vibe, Hoseok's emotionality manifests as a high-stakes struggle for perfection. He is his own harshest critic, and Pdogg has watched him through the glass as he physically reacts to a take that wasn't honest enough. He'll hang his head, his shoulders slumping, and for a moment, the sunshine persona vanishes, replaced by a young man who feels the immense weight of his own expectations. There's a legendary story within the walls of HYBE about the recording of Mama from the Wings album. Pdogg recalls how Hoseok didn't just want to rap about his mother. He wanted to channel the very essence of his gratitude and the pain of his early trainee days. During those sessions, the air in the booth was thick with a sense of nostalgia that felt almost suffocating. Pdogg noticed that Hoseok wasn't just reading lyrics, he was performing a private ceremony for his family. Every time the beat dropped, his face would transform, his eyes narrowing with a focus that bordered on the spiritual. Pdogg says that when Hoseok gets emotional in the booth, he doesn't just cry, he vibrates. You can hear it in the breathiness of his delivery, a stylistic choice that Pdogg says comes from a place of genuine physical exhaustion and emotional release. There are moments when Pdogg has had to stop the recording just to tell Hoseok to take a breath, because he was pushing himself so hard into the emotion of the track that he forgot to care for his own body. This is the man who will record the same line 50 times, not because he missed a note, but because he felt the soul of the previous 49 takes wasn't pure enough. This emotional perfectionism is what makes him so unique to Pdogg. He isn't just recording a song, he's recording a piece of his life. Even in more upbeat tracks like Chicken Noodle Soup or Outro, Ego, Pdogg notes that there is a layer of desperate joy, a feeling that Hoseok is dancing on the edge of a cliff, using his music to keep from falling. That hidden vulnerability is what earns him the number 5 spot. He is the member who masks his deepest anxieties with a smile, but in the studio with Pdogg, that mask is forced off. Pdogg has seen the moments of doubt, The moments where Hoseok leans against the microphone stand, his chest heaving, wondering if he's doing justice to the story he's trying to tell. It's a quiet, internal fire that burns hot and bright. Pdogg remembers the recording of Blue Side, where the emotionality wasn't about power, but about a soft, yearning sadness. The way Hoseok's voice trailed off in the booth left the entire production team in a state of stunned silence. It was a side of him that felt so fragile, so unlike the J-Hope the public knows, that Pdogg felt like he was seeing into a secret room of Hoseok's heart. He is a man of two worlds, the bright light of the stage and the deep shadows of the studio. Pdogg respects this duality more than anything, noting that it takes an incredible amount of emotional stamina to switch between those two identities. When you hear a J-Hope verse, you aren't just hearing a rapper, you're hearing a man who has fought a war with his own emotions just to give you that one perfect take. The recording booth becomes a confessional for him, a place where he can finally drop the burden of being everyone's hope and just be a human being who feels, who hurts, and who longs for something more. Pdogg says that after a long day of recording, Hoseok is often the most physically and emotionally drained, having poured every ounce of his spirit into the digital tracks. It's an exhausting, beautiful process to witness. He ranks here because his emotion is a tool, a weapon he uses to make his music feel alive. But if the sunshine of the group can bring this much intensity to a session, what happens when we reach the members who are known for their raw, unfiltered sensitivity? We are entering the top 4. The territory of the members whose voices are practically synonymous with emotion. Who is the one who can make Pdogg forget he's a producer and just make him a listener lost in a sea of feeling? The countdown is heating up, and the stories from the booth are about to get even more personal. Are you ready to see who takes the number 4 spot? Number 4. The silver soul of resilience. The high note that shatters the silence. Coming in at number 4 is a man whose journey in the recording studio is perhaps the most cinematic and inspiring of them all. The eldest, the worldwide handsome himself, Kim Seokjin. Now, don't let the dad jokes and the confident exterior fool you for a single second. When Seokjin enters the recording booth, the atmosphere shifts from light-hearted playfulness to a state of profound, almost painful sincerity. Producer Pdogg has often spoken about Jin with a special kind of reverence, not just because of his vocal growth, but because of the sheer emotional labor Jin puts into every single syllable. You see, Jin didn't start as a singer. He started as an actor trainee, and that background has given him a unique, dramatic edge that Pdogg knows how to weaponize in the best way possible. Pdogg recalls the early days, the era of Danger and Boy in Love, where Jin was still finding his footing, but even then, there was a cry in his voice, a natural, silvery resonance that felt like it was constantly on the verge of breaking. As the years went by, that fragility turned into a powerhouse of emotion. Pdogg has described Jin as a relentless worker, the kind of artist who will practice a single high note until his throat is raw, just to ensure that the feeling is right. But the real emotional peak, the moment Pdogg saw the true depth of Seokjin's soul, came during the recording of his solo tracks like Awake and the world-shattering Epiphany. Imagine being in that dimly lit control room with Pdogg, watching through the glass as Jin stands there, his eyes closed, his neck veins protruding as he belts out those legendary high notes. In Awake, Jin was singing about his own fears of not being as talented as the other members, about walking while they were flying. Pdogg remembers that the session wasn't just about hitting the notes, it was about Jin confronting his own insecurities. Every time he sang the line, "Maybe I can never fly," Pdogg could hear the actual heartbreak in the monitor. It wasn't just a vocal performance, it was a confession. Pdogg has noted that Jin has this incredible ability to make his voice sound like it's bleeding for the listener. Then came Abyss, a song born from a period of deep burnout and sadness that Jin experienced. When Jin approached Pdogg and the production team with his feelings of emptiness, the recording session became a form of therapy. Pdogg describes Jin's state in the booth during Abyss as hauntingly still. He wasn't the energetic Jin we see on variety shows, he was a man submerged in his own ocean of thoughts. The way he delivered those breathy, low-register lines was so raw that the production team felt a collective lump in their throats. Pdogg says that Jin's emotionality is crystalline, it is clear, sharp, and can cut right through you. He doesn't hide behind complex rap flows or heavy distortion, he stands there with his silver voice and lays himself bare. Pdogg has also marveled at Jin's performance in The Astronaut, where the emotion was less about sadness and more about a cosmic, overwhelming sense of love and belonging. Even then, Pdogg noticed the way Jin's voice would waver slightly, not out of technical weakness, but out of a genuine, overwhelming feeling of gratitude. The producer often says that Jin is the member who gives his all to the point of exhaustion. He doesn't just sing with his vocal cords, he sings with his entire nervous system. Pdogg remembers sessions where, after a particularly emotional take, Jin would come out of the booth looking physically drained, his face pale, having left everything he had inside that small, padded room. This is why he ranks so high. His emotion is earned. It is the result of a man who fought to be heard and who now uses that voice to tell the most vulnerable stories of the human heart. Pdogg views Jin as the emotional anchor of the group's vocal line, the one who provides the climax, the one who brings the killing part that makes the listener finally burst into tears. There is a specific resonance of longing in Jin's voice that Pdogg believes is unmatched. It's the sound of someone who knows what it's like to struggle and who wants to tell the world that they aren't alone. Pdogg has seen Jin grow from a shy student into a vocalist who can command the emotions of millions with a single, sustained note. Every time you hear that soaring bridge in a BTS song, remember that Pdogg was on the other side of the glass, watching Jin pour his very life essence into that microphone. He is the silver soul because his emotion is pure, untarnished, and incredibly resilient. He doesn't just show you his heart, he makes you feel yours. It's this combination of technical mastery and raw, unfiltered honesty that makes his sessions so legendary in the HYBE building. Pdogg often tells stories of how Jin's dedication inspired the younger members to push harder, to be more real in their own takes. He set the bar for what it means to be an emotional vocalist. But as we move into the top 3, we are entering the realm of the truly supernatural, the members whose emotionality is so intense, it sometimes borders on the overwhelming even for a seasoned pro like Pdogg. We've seen the silent storm, the philosopher, the perfectionist, and the resilient soul. But who are the final 3? Who is the member who can walk into a booth and make the air itself feel heavy with sorrow or electric with passion before they even open their mouth? The tension in the studio is reaching its breaking point. Are you ready to see who breaks into the top 3 most emotional members during recording? The next name on our list is someone whose voice is often described as a masterpiece of nature, and his sessions with Pdogg are nothing short of legendary. Can you guess who it is? Number 3. The Soulful Deep, the master of atmospheric heartbreak. Entering the top 3, we find ourselves in the presence of a man whose voice has been described by producer Pdogg as a gift from the heavens, a baritone that doesn't just hit your ears, it vibrates in your very bones. We are talking about the enigmatic and deeply soulful Kim Taehyung, known to the world as V. If Jin's emotion is like a silver needle, then Taehyung's is like a thick, heavy fog that rolls into the recording studio, changing the visibility and the temperature of the room until everyone is lost in his world. Pdogg has spent a decade molding the sound of BTS, but he has often admitted that Taehyung is the member who surprised him the most. In the early days, Pdogg had to figure out how to fit a soulful, jazz-leaning baritone into a high-energy hip-hop group. But as they evolved, Taehyung's emotionality became the secret weapon for the group's most melancholic and artistic tracks. When V steps into the booth, Pdogg notices a distinct shift in the air. Unlike the others who might be checking lyrics or warming up their vocal cords, Taehyung often enters with a mood. He is a sensory artist. He needs the lighting in the booth to be just right, often preferring it dim, creating a private sanctuary where he can disappear into the character of the song. Pdogg recalls the recording of Stigma from the Wings album, a track that remains one of the most vocally and emotionally demanding in Taehyung's career. Pdogg sat at the console, watching as Taehyung wrestled with the theme of guilt and internal torment. There was a moment when V had to hit a series of high-register falsettos that were meant to sound like a desperate plea. Pdogg remembers the look in Taehyung's eyes through the glass. It wasn't just a singer trying to hit a note, it was a man staring into the mirror of his own soul. The way his voice trailed off into a whisper, thick with a husky, breathier texture, was something Pdogg hadn't even coached him to do. It was pure, raw instinct. For Pdogg, Taehyung's emotionality is cinematic. He doesn't just record music, he creates a visual landscape with his voice. Pdogg has often mentioned how V can take a single word and imbue it with 1,000 years of longing. Think about the recording of Singularity. Pdogg has shared that this session was particularly legendary. The track required a soulful R&B vibe that was both seductive and haunting. Pdogg watched as Taehyung moved rhythmically in the booth, almost as if he were dancing with the shadows. The emotion wasn't loud or explosive. It was a deep, quiet ache that felt incredibly intimate. Pdogg felt like he was eavesdropping on a secret conversation. This is the Taehyung magic that Pdogg values so highly, the ability to make a producer feel like a stranger in his own studio because the emotion is so personal. Pdogg also reflects on the Blue and Gray sessions, a song Taehyung wrote during a period of intense loneliness. When V stepped up to the mic to record his parts, the production team went silent. The lyrics, "Where's my angel? I'm sick and tired of everything," weren't just lines. They were a heavy sigh from a soul that was truly exhausted. Pdogg noted that V's voice had a grainy quality that day, a sign that he was leaning into his sadness rather than trying to mask it with technical perfection. It's this willingness to be imperfectly real that makes him so emotional in Pdogg's eyes. He isn't afraid to let his voice crack if it means the feeling is authentic. There's a story from the Spring Day recording where Taehyung's delivery of the line, "You know it all, you're my best friend," was so poignant that Pdogg decided to keep a take that wasn't technically the cleanest because it had the most heart. Pdogg sees Taehyung as a member who feels music as much as he hears it. He is a man who carries the weight of his secret member days, the time before debut when he had to stay hidden while the others were revealed, and that early experience of loneliness still colors the way he interprets sad melodies. Pdogg says that recording with V is always a journey into the unknown. You never quite know what emotional colors he will bring to the palette. He is the master of atmosphere because he can take a generic demo and turn it into a moody, atmospheric masterpiece just by breathing into the microphone. He ranks here because his emotionality is a constant, steady hum of soul, a depth that Pdogg says is deeper than the Pacific Ocean. He doesn't have to try to be emotional, he simply is. As the session ends, V often walks out of the booth with a dreamy, distant look, as if he hasn't quite returned from the world he just created. Pdogg just nods, knowing he has captured something that can't be manufactured. But if Taehyung is the deep, moody fog of the studio, who are the final two? We are approaching the pinnacle of this emotional ranking. The final two members represent the extreme ends of the emotional spectrum, the one who fights for every tear, and the one who is a literal mirror of everyone's pain. Who could possibly be more emotional than the soulful Deep himself? The air in the studio is getting thinner, the stakes are getting higher, and Pdogg is ready to reveal the final secrets of the two members who define the emotional heart of BTS. Are you ready for the final showdown? Who is the member that can make even a world-class producer like Pdogg lose his professional composure? Number 2. The ethereal heart of sensitivity. The high-wire act of human emotion. We have reached the penultimate stage of our countdown, and the air in the studio has grown heavy with a specific kind of electric vulnerability that only one person can manifest. Coming in at number 2 is the man whose voice has been described as a miracle of nature, a delicate thread of silk that somehow possesses the strength of a steel cable, the incomparable Park Jimin. When you talk to producer Pdogg about Jimin, you don't just talk about vocal ranges or pitch accuracy, you talk about a spiritual experience that happens behind the microphone. Pdogg has often noted that recording with Jimin is like watching a tightrope walker perform without a net. It is thrilling, terrifying, and profoundly moving. While some members approach a song with logic and others with mood, Jimin approaches it with his entire physical and emotional being. He doesn't just sing a track, he lets it consume him until there is no boundary between the singer and the song. Pdogg recalls the Wings era as a definitive turning point for Jimin's emotional evolution. The recording of his solo track, Lie, remains one of the most intense periods in Big Hit studio history. Pdogg has shared stories of Jimin standing in that booth, his small frame trembling with the sheer effort of trying to convey the darkness and temptation of the lyrics. In Lie, Jimin had to reach into a part of himself that was filled with doubt and internal conflict, and Pdogg watched through the glass as the young artist pushed his voice into a jagged, painful register that sounded like a soul crying out for help. There were moments when the room was so quiet you could hear the blood rushing in your ears, and Pdogg would hesitate to speak over the intercom, afraid to break the fragile trance Jimin had entered. This is the Jimin effect in the studio. His emotionality is so contagious that it spills out of the booth and infects everyone at the mixing console. Pdogg has mentioned that Jimin is perhaps the most self-critical member, a perfectionist who often equates his vocal performance with his worth as a person. This internal struggle creates a raw, bleeding edge in his recordings. Pdogg recalls sessions where Jimin would record a take that was technically flawless, beautiful, airy, and on pitch, but Jimin would step out of the booth with tears in his eyes, shaking his head because he felt he hadn't captured the pain correctly. He would go back in, hour after hour, pushing himself until his voice was on the verge of breaking, and it was in those moments of near collapse that Pdogg would find the magic take. Think about the recording of Serendipity. Pdogg wanted something heavenly yet grounded, and he watched Jimin transform the booth into a dreamscape. But the beauty came from a place of intense sensitivity. Jimin was so focused on the nuance of every breath that he became a mirror of the song's longing. Pdogg notes that when Jimin is emotional, his body language changes, he clenches his fists, his eyes remain tightly shut, and he often hunches over as if he is physically protecting the notes he is producing. More recently, during the production of his solo album Face, Pdogg saw an even more mature, yet even more raw version of Jimin's emotionality. In tracks like Set Me Free PT2 and Like Crazy, the emotion wasn't just about sadness, it was about the frantic, chaotic energy of finding oneself. Pdogg has reflected on how Jimin's voice in Set Me Free PT2 was intentionally processed to sound like a scream within a machine, but the foundation was Jimin's real, unfiltered frustration recorded in the booth. Pdogg remembers the tension in the room as Jimin tackled the high-octane emotions of being trapped and wanting to break out. He is the member who will stay in the studio until the sun comes up, not because he is behind schedule, but because he is chasing an emotional truth that is constantly shifting. Pdogg has said that Jimin's sensitivity is his greatest strength, but also his greatest burden. He feels every lyric so deeply that it can be exhausting for him to finish a session. There is a specific resonance of sorrow, that Jimin can produce a high, shimmering vibrato that sounds like it's about to shatter. Pdogg has often had to act as both a producer and a big brother, reminding Jimin that it's okay to be human and that the imperfections are actually what make the fans feel connected to him. For Pdogg, Jimin is the ethereal heart because he brings a level of sensitivity that feels almost supernatural. He is the one who can make a listener feel like they are being whispered a secret in the middle of a crowded room. His emotionality is high stakes and high reward. When he hits that perfect emotion-drenched note, it's like a lightning strike in the studio. Pdogg has seen Jimin grow from a boy who is insecure about his tone into a world-class vocalist who uses his vulnerability as a weapon of mass connection. He ranks at number 2 because his emotionality is a physical force. You can see it in his sweat, hear it in his gasping breaths between takes, and feel it in the heavy silence that follows his final note. He is the artist who leaves a piece of his soul in every digital file he records, and Pdogg is the guardian of those fragments. But as we stand on the threshold of the number 1 spot, you have to wonder, if Jimin's intensity is enough to make a studio vibrate with sensitivity, who could possibly be more emotional? Who is the member that Pdogg identifies as the ultimate emotional conduit, the one whose very existence in the booth is a masterclass in raw, unfiltered, and overwhelming human feeling? We are down to the final name, the person who sits at the pinnacle of this ranking. Is it the Golden McNai who absorbs the emotions of all 6 brothers? The tension is at its absolute limit. Are you ready to discover who Pdogg crowns as the most emotional member of BTS during the recording process? The final secret of the big hit studio is about to be revealed. Number 1. The empathic vessel of 7 souls, the golden heart that bleeds for his brothers. Finally, we have arrived at the summit, the absolute peak of our emotional journey through the secret archives of the big hit recording studio. After exploring the silent storms, the poetic intellectuals, the disciplined sunshines, the resilient souls, the atmospheric baritones, and the ethereal high-wire acts, we find the one name that producer Pdogg speaks of with a unique mixture of pride, awe, and deep emotional resonance, the number 1 spot. The member who is most emotional during recording because he carries not just his own feelings but the collective heart of the entire group is the Golden McNai, Jungkook. Now, you might be surprised to see the unstoppable ace of BTS at the top of an emotional ranking. We often see him as the one who can do everything perfectly, the powerhouse dancer, the stable live vocalist, the competitive athlete. But Pdogg, the man who has watched Jungkook grow from a wide-eyed 15-year-old boy into a global icon, knows that the golden exterior is built upon a foundation of almost terrifying sensitivity. For Pdogg, recording with Jungkook is a profound experience because Jungkook doesn't have a filter for his emotions when he is in the booth. He is a literal empathic sponge. Pdogg has famously shared that the most emotional moment he ever witnessed in the studio wasn't triggered by a heartbreak or a personal failure, but by Jungkook's love for his 6 older brothers. The legendary recording of Begin from the Wings album is the cornerstone of this ranking. Pdogg recalls the session where the lyrics, written by RM about Jungkook's feelings toward his hyungs, were first presented. As Jungkook stood before the microphone, the realization of how much his brothers had raised him, and how much their pain became his own pain completely overwhelmed him. Pdogg watched through the glass as the youngest member didn't just sing, he broke down. It wasn't just a few tears. It was a raw, guttural release of years of bottled-up gratitude and empathy. Pdogg had to stop the recording as Jungkook sobbed, not out of sadness for himself, but because the weight of the other 6 members' struggles lived inside his chest. This is why Pdogg ranks him first. Jungkook's emotionality is selfless. In the recording booth, he becomes a vessel for the BTS story. When you hear that crystal clear, popping vocal style that Pdogg helped him refine, you are hearing a voice that is constantly vibrating with the pressure of wanting to do justice to the group's message. Pdogg notes that Jungkook is a vocal chameleon because he can feel the specific emotion of any songwriter and make it his own. If a song is about loneliness, Jungkook becomes the loneliest person on earth. If it's about joy, he radiates a light that is almost blinding. But it's in the quiet, slow tracks where Pdogg sees the true depth. During the recording of Still With You, a song Jungkook produced himself, Pdogg witnessed a different kind of emotional maturity. The booth was dimly lit. The smell of rain almost seemed to permeate the studio, and Jungkook sang with a wetness in his voice, a texture that Pdogg says can only be achieved when an artist is truly, deeply immersed in a memory. Pdogg has often said that Jungkook's greatest talent isn't his pitch or his power, but his sincerity. He cannot lie to a microphone. If he is feeling tired, the microphone hears it. If he is feeling immense love for the fans, the microphone captures that warmth. Pdogg recalls sessions for the Golden Album where Jungkook would record for hours, his face pale and his eyes rimmed with red, not because he was failing, but because he was searching for the perfect emotional frequency. He is a perfectionist of the heart. There is a specific detail Pdogg once mentioned about how Jungkook's breathing changes when he's about to get emotional in a take. It becomes shallow and rhythmic, like someone trying to stay calm in a storm. Pdogg has learned to recognize these signs and often lets the tape roll because those pre-emotional moments are where the most haunting ad-libs come from. Even in his more aggressive tracks, Pdogg can hear the undercurrent of desperation, the boy who moved to Seoul alone at a young age and found a family in 6 strangers. That history is present in every vocal run. Pdogg views Jungkook as the ultimate emotional conduit because he is the youngest. He is the one who absorbed the lessons, the pains, and the dreams of the other members, and he pours all of that accumulated energy back into the music. When Jungkook hits a high note, he isn't just showing off his range, he is pushing against the boundaries of his own soul. Pdogg has seen him come out of the booth after a session looking like he has aged 10 years, his shirt soaked in sweat and his eyes distant, as if he's just returned from a long journey into his own psyche. He is the golden heart because he bleeds for the music, for the fans, and most importantly, for his brothers. Pdogg acknowledges that while the other members have their specific emotional styles, Jungkook is the one who can encompass them all. He is the finale, the climax, and the heart of the BTS sound. He doesn't just feel the music, he allows the music to rewrite him in real time. This raw, unfiltered, and deeply empathic approach to recording is why producer Pdogg considers him the most emotional member behind the glass. The Golden Maknae title isn't just about talent, it's about the golden quality of a heart that refuses to harden, even under the immense pressure of global superstardom. Every time you hear a Jungkook vocal, you are hearing the result of that intense, emotional labor. A labor of love that Pdogg has had the privilege of capturing for over a decade. And so, the ranking concludes with the man who carries the weight of 7, the voice that turned the dreams of a small agency into the reality of a global phenomenon through the sheer power of feeling everything, all at once, in a tiny recording booth.